All right, this video is going to cover operations with polynomials. And when I talk about operations, I'm talking about addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. In this video, I'm going to focus on the adding, subtracting, and multiplying of polynomials. I'll reserve the division for a separate video. A couple of definitions just to start out with polynomials. The degree of a polynomial is something we'll be using in this unit, and the degree is going to be the value of the largest exponent in the polynomial. So for example, this polynomial right here, the degree is going to be the value of the largest exponent, which is 4. Okay, so the degree of this polynomial is simply 4. That's it. That's all there is to this. Now the next definition is going to be that of a leading coefficient for a polynomial, and that is going to be the coefficient, which is the number in front of the variable, is the coefficient on the leading term, which also will be the largest term of that polynomial. So in this situation, once again, 4 is the degree of the polynomial, and then 3 is called the leading coefficient. It is the coefficient on the largest term. All right, so 3 is your leading coefficient. Now, polynomials need to be written in descending order of the exponents. Descending meaning going down. So you start with the term that has the largest exponent, which in this example is negative 5y cubed. Then you move on to the next largest exponent, which will be the term 3y squared. And then the next term will be plus y, and then the last term is positive 10. So descending order of the exponents, we have an exponent of 3, and then 2, and then 1, and then 0. All right, so now moving on to the actual operations with the polynomials, starting with addition and subtraction. If a polynomial has parentheses, this is the first thing that you will need to do, and that is distribute whatever number is outside the parenthesis, distribute it to everything that is inside the parentheses. Okay, so here, starting out, 5 times x cubed will be 5x cubed. 5 times negative 2x will be minus 10x. And then 5 times 3 is 15. Now in the next one, what we are doing is we are subtracting polynomials. This is a polynomial, and then this is a separate polynomial. So we're subtracting polynomials. This minus, you can think of this as a negative 1 right here. You have a negative 1 that needs to be distributed to everything inside this parenthesis. What that does is it changes the sign of everything inside the parenthesis. So this will become a minus 4x cubed minus x squared, and then plus 7. So after you have distributed to get rid of the parentheses, your next step is going to be combining like terms. And when combining like terms, all you're going to be doing is adding or subtracting the coefficients. Now when I say like terms, it has to be terms that have exactly the same variable raised to exactly the same power. So in this example right here, we have a 5x cubed and we have a negative 4x cubed. Those will combine together to give us 1x cubed. Then we move on to the next highest power, which is our x squared. Well, all we have is this this negative x squared. There are no other x squareds, so that will be our next term. Then we move on to our x to the first power terms, and all we have is this minus 10x. There are no other x to the first powers. And then the constants, we have a 15 and we have a 7, so that's going to give us a plus 22 on the end. All right, so just a little bit of practice. You may want to take a second, pause the video, and write these down, and then try to work them out, and then play the video, and then you can check yourself. All right, so distributing a 1/3 to each term here, 3 times a third is going to give us 1x squared plus 2/3 x minus 1/3. And then distributing a -2, this will be minus 2x squared plus 6x. Now combining like terms, this will give us, let's see, we have a positive x squared and we have a negative 2x squared. That'll give us a negative x squared. We have a positive 2/3 x and a positive 6x. That would give us 6 2/3 x. But what we want to do is write this as an improper fraction. 6 2/3 would be equivalent to 20/3 x. And then we've got our constant on the end of minus 1/3. All right, the next one we're going to be distributing some x's here. So distributing here, you're going to get 12x cubed minus 15x plus x squared plus 6x. All right, so putting all this together, you're going to have 12x cubed plus x squared minus 9x. And the last example here, this time you have multiple variables. So multiplying here, you're going to get 2x to the third power, y to the second power, so 2x cubed y squared, minus 6x squared y squared, and then plus, distributing over here, you get 4x cubed y squared plus 5xy cubed. All right, so combining a couple of things together, we have an x cubed y squared here, and we also have x cubed y squared here. So those two can be combined together to give us 6x cubed y squared. Then we have the other two terms which cannot be combined together. So we'll have the minus 6x squared y squared and the plus 5xy cubed. And that is your simplified answer there. All right, so when multiplying polynomials, coefficients will get multiplied together and variables will get multiplied together. When you multiply variables, you will add your exponents. So for example, 5x times 6x cubed. The 5 times the x will give you 30. And the x, which is x to the first power, okay, the exponent on this will be a 1. So x times x cubed gives you x raised to the fourth power. So when multiplying polynomials, what you're going to do is start with the first term, and then you're going to multiply the first term by every term in the other polynomial. And then you'll move on to the second term and do the same thing. And if there are more terms, you just kind of repeat the process. So the first step is you start with a 2, start with this number right here, it's your first term, and you multiply it by every term in the other parenthesis. All right, so 2 times the 1 is 2, and then 2 times the x will give you 2x. Now you move to the second term of 3x, and you multiply it with the first term and then with the next term. Putting these in order will give us our final answer of 3x squared plus, combining like terms, you get a 5x and then a plus 2. All right, so let's move on to some larger polynomials here. This next one is going to be multiplying a binomial times a trinomial. So 2 terms multiplied by 3 terms. Start with the 2 and you multiply it by each term in the other parenthesis. So once again, you may want to pause the video here, practice this, and then turn it on and check your answers. All right, so starting with the 2, 2 times the 1, 2 times the negative 4x, and then 2 times the 2x squared. Now we move on to the 3x and multiply it by each of the terms. So you get 3x minus 12x squared plus 6x cubed. Now put everything in order, starting with your 6x cubed is your largest term. We have a 4x squared and a negative 12x squared, which is negative 8x squared. Plus 3x and minus 8x will give us minus 5x. And then we have a constant of 2 on the end. All right, then the next one, we have 3 terms multiplied by 3 terms, so we will end up with 9 terms before combining. So start with your x squared and multiply it by all 3 terms. That's going to give you 5x to the 4th minus 6x cubed plus 2x squared minus 20x cubed plus 24x squared minus 8x plus 35x squared minus 42x plus 14. Now combining like terms, we have 5x to the 4th by itself. Then we have a negative 6x cubed and a negative 20x cubed, so that's minus 26x cubed. Then we have a 2x squared, a 24x squared, that's 26, and then a 35x squared, so that totals up to 61x squared. That takes care of all of those. A negative 8x and a negative 42x will be minus 50x. And then we have our constant of plus 14. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is simplifying polynomial fractions. Sometimes polynomial fractions can be simplified by factoring and then canceling like factors. Now remember, factors are things that are multiplied together. All right, so when you look at this example here, 35x minus 70 divided by 35 can also be written as a fraction of 35x minus 70 over 35, because the fraction bar means divide. So when I say can be simplified by factoring, what we want to do is we want to look at this numerator and see, how can I factor this? Well, our first step to factoring is to see if there is a GCF. In this case, yes, there is a GCF of 35. If you take that out of each term, you are left with x minus 2. Now, because there's multiplication right here, that means that 35 is a factor and x minus 2 is a factor. We have two factors in the numerator. Well, the 35 can cancel with the 35 that is in our denominator. So this can cancel with this. That will leave us with a simplified answer of x minus 2. So if we apply the same idea on the next example, in the numerator you can take out a GCF of 5, so that becomes 5 parenthesis x minus 4 over x minus 4. So in the numerator we have two factors. 5 is a factor and x minus 4 is a factor. This x minus 4 can only cancel with another x minus 4. Well, we have one in the denominator. So those two things will cancel with each other, leaving you with an answer of 5. All right, so the next one here is going to be a tad bit longer. From what you can see, we can take out a GCF in the numerator of 3x. When you take a 3x out, that is going to leave you with 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. Over x plus 2. So coming back to the numerator. In the numerator, we actually have three factors here. This is 3 times x times this parenthesis. So this whole parenthesis is one factor, x is a factor, and 3 is a factor. In the denominator, you could put parentheses around the denominator here. X plus 2 would be a factor. Now, this x plus 2 down here will only cancel with another x plus 2. We do not have a factor that is x plus 2 in this numerator. However, if you look at this parenthesis, we have a trinomial. So we want to try to factor this a little bit further. There is a number in front of the x squared, so let's use box method for factoring this. Your 2x squared would go in here. Your 2 would go here. Multiply those together and you get 4. The factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. The combination that gives us this middle term of 5 is 1 and 4. So that tells us that 1x goes one place and 4x goes in the other box. Now in the top row, you're going to factor out a GCF here, and that GCF is x. Now it's a multiplication table. X times 2x gives us the first box here. X times 1 gives us an x right here. And then right here, a 2 times a 2x will give us the 4x. Well, that tells us this does factor further. So this factors down to 3 times x times 2x plus 1 times x plus 2 over x plus 2. So in the numerator we have 4 factors. Now We have the 3, we have the x, we have the 2x plus 1, which would only cancel with another 2x plus 1, and we have the x plus 2, which only cancels with another x plus 2. Now we do have an x plus 2 in your denominator, which means these two things are going to cancel with each other. So what we have then is our 3x and the 2x plus 1. If I redistribute those, you're going to end up with 6x squared plus 3x. That is our simplified polynomial. And the last example here. In the numerator, there is no GCF, but this can factor down. We have a 1 in front of the x squared, which means only way of getting x squared is to multiply x times x. We need two numbers that multiply together to give you negative 10 and add to give you negative 3. That would be a minus 5 and a plus 2. In your denominator, you have a difference of two squares, which will factor down to x plus 5 times x minus 5. Now in the numerator, you have two factors. You have an x minus 5 and you have an x plus 2. In your denominator, you have two factors, an x plus 5 and an x minus 5. Since we have an x minus 5 in both the numerator and denominator, they will cancel out, leaving us with a simplified answer of x plus 2 over x plus 5.